Warminster, England, December 25th of 1964. At around 1:25 a.m., a local woman named Mildred Head suddenly woke up to a strange noise. She described the sound as twigs brushing against the tiles on her roof, but it was getting increasingly louder until the ceiling began to reverberate. Mildred got out of bed and looked out the window, but she saw nothing. However, she did hear a second noise, which she described as a humming sound that grew louder before fading away. After this, Mildred went back to bed and thought little of the incident. Several hours later, soldiers at the nearby Nook Camp Army base were woken up by a noise that they described as a huge chimney stack from the main block ripped from the rooftop, then scattered across the whole camp. At 6:30 a.m., Warminster resident Roger Rump and his wife were awoken by a similar noise at their house. The Rumps described it as the 5,000 tiles on our roof being ripped off and then put back on again with an enormous clatter. At roughly the same time, another local woman named Marjorie By was walking to church when she was thrown to the ground by the force of what she described as savage sound waves. In total, over 30 people in and around Warminster reported hearing strange noises on Christmas morning of 1964, but it didn't end there. Christmas morning had only marked the beginning. In February of 1965, an entire flock of pigeons suddenly dropped dead. Just a month later, 3 different families heard loud noises above their houses, and the roofs and windows began to shake. That same month, a resident named Joan Brown reported that her family's cat was reacting violently to strange sound waves that were rattling the house. The cat vomited throughout the day, and other local pets displayed signs of distress and even panic. In June of 1965, various Warminster residents reported seeing unidentified flying objects in the sky above the town. Descriptions of the UFOs varied from witness to witness. One said that the object looked cigar-shaped and covered with winking bright lights, while another stated that what they saw looked like twin red-hot pokers hanging downwards, one on top of the other, with a black space in between. The eerie and unexplained events in Warminster began to receive attention in the media, and crowds started arriving, hoping to see the Warminster Thing. Over the August bank holiday of 1965, around 8,000 people traveled to Warminster. On August 10th, a lorry driver in the area saw a fiery orb coming toward his vehicle before it suddenly veered off into the night sky. Later that same night, a local resident named Rachel Atwell was woken up by a loud droning noise, and she saw a pulsating light hovering in the air. She felt an intense sensation of pressure in her head, which went away as soon as the light disappeared. The next month, a man named Gordon Faulkner claimed to have snapped a photo of the unidentified flying object, and the Daily Mirror published the picture. The picture sparked even more widespread media coverage, and the story of the Warminster Thing eventually made its way to the United States. Over the next few years, sightings and noises continued happening erratically. One person saw a ball of crimson light, while another heard a terrible droning sound. In 1966, the BBC created a documentary about the Warminster Thing called Pie in the Sky. In October of 1967, police constables Roger Willey and Clifford Waycott gave an interview in which they recounted their own experience with the UFO. They described seeing a star-like object performing erratic aerial maneuvers. However, by the early 1970s, sightings of the UFO had declined dramatically, and the crowds of tourists hoping to get a glimpse of the phenomenon had dispersed. Interest soon died out and things went back to normal. To this day, we're left to wonder what happened in that English town back in 1964 that sparked a series of unexplained events. Countless people have posited hypotheses on the Warminster Thing, many of them being downright conspiracy theories. Some people seem to think the town's proximity to Stonehenge makes it an ideal destination for paranormal activity and alien interaction, but more skeptical people have thought of more reasonable explanations. For example, there are many atmospheric phenomena such as St. Elmo's fire or ball lightning that the majority of people don't know how to identify, and these phenomena could very well have explained many of the sightings. Other people have posited that weather balloons could have caused some of the reports, although this would not cover the noises. Some people have also posited mass hysteria as an explanation for some of the sightings. At the end of the day, there is no clear answer on what happened in Warminster. Hopefully someday we will find out the truth, but I don't think that's very likely to happen. This mystery will most likely remain a mystery forever. December 22nd of 1981 was the date of the first company Christmas party for 19-year-old Rhonda Hinson. Rhonda had recently graduated high school in Valdez, North Carolina, and she was celebrating her first real job as a clerical worker for a steel company. According to Rhonda's mother, Judy, everybody had loved Rhonda. She had plenty of friends and was always loving and kind. Rhonda's best friend was a girl named Jill Turner, who stated that she had met Rhonda in 4th grade and they became inseparable. Rhonda played basketball, ran track, and excelled in tennis. She went on a lot of double dates with Jill, and Rhonda was overall a popular and charming person. Rhonda did not initially plan on going to the Hickory Steel Company Christmas party. According to Judy, she really didn't want to go, but her best friend at work said, "Well, I won't go if you don't go." This is what caused Rhonda to reconsider. On the day of the party, she worked early in the day and called her mother before coming home to tell Judy to get a new outfit for Rhonda to wear to the Christmas party. Rhonda drove to her work friend's house in Hickory and left her car there while the friend drove them to the party. According to Judy, Rhonda had told me and her dad that she was going to stay in Hickory at the girlfriend's house because she didn't want to drive home alone that late. However, their plans changed. Rhonda left the party at around midnight with 2 friends, went back to pick up her own vehicle, and then began driving west on Interstate 40. She exited onto the Mineral Springs Mountain Highway 350 ramp and began traveling up a steep hill that led toward her home. The drive back home was approximately 10 miles long, and Rhonda figured she could do it without a problem after all. At exactly 1 a.m., Judy woke up with a bad gut feeling. She stated, "I woke up feeling panicky, scared, because I felt like something had happened to Rhonda. I felt like Rhonda was dead. I felt like she had been in an automobile accident." She explained that she woke up Rhonda's father, Bobby, and told him about the feeling she had. Bobby tried to reassure his wife by reminding her that Rhonda was staying at a friend's house, but Judy was terrified. Bobby turned on his police scanner to check if there had been any accidents. No car crashes, but something even more sinister had happened. A homicide had taken place on Mineral Springs Mountain Road, and the victim had been Rhonda. Rhonda's car was found just half a mile away from her house with the driver's side door open. A few feet away was Rhonda's body, lying on her back with her arms at her sides. She had been killed by a single bullet fired from a high-power rifle. In fact, the shot had been so powerful that the bullet had passed through the trunk of the car and the driver's seat before penetrating Rhonda's heart. The authorities launched an investigation into the murder, which initially seemed to be a random act of violence with no rhyme or reason. It didn't take long for detectives to start putting together some very disturbing pieces. According to Judy, Rhonda had been acting strangely in the days leading up to her death. I could just tell a difference. She didn't seem as happy. Her dad worked at a bakery and had to go to work at 1 or 2 a.m. He said when he would pass, going past the house, he passed her window and she would be awake looking out the window. Rhonda never explained her change in behavior to her parents, who stated that she was a private person. From interviewing Judy and Bobby, the police discovered that Rhonda had been suffering from insomnia in the weeks leading up to her murder, and one of the symptoms had been taking showers in the middle of the night. Rhonda also made a comment to Judy at one point about how she felt dirty. The police stated that this behavior is potentially indicative of SA, and they believed that Rhonda had been under some kind of pressure. According to Jill, Rhonda most likely knew her killer. Jill stated that her friend was never the type of person to simply pull over and sit in her car for no reason, so she must have known that someone was going to be waiting for her on the side of the road. Disturbingly, police soon uncovered evidence that Rhonda was being stalked on the night of the Christmas party. Between 12:15 and 12:30 a.m., a witness drove under the Interstate 40 bridge on Mineral Springs Mountain Road, and she observed a blue GM Chevy facing north with 2 white men inside. The car was parked next to the same off-ramp that Rhonda used shortly before her murder. The men were present just 30 minutes before the shooting. Later that night, another witness who was traveling down that same road passed a similar blue vehicle with only 1 man inside. He was speeding away from the crime scene. The witness continued driving and passed by the crime scene where he saw Rhonda's car with her body slumped in the driver's seat. An unidentified man was standing at the front driver's side door. The witness had assumed that they were a drunk couple at the time, but he reported what he had seen when he heard about the murder. Under hypnosis, the witness described the vehicle he had seen as a 1970s blue Chevy with a messed up front bumper and a gray primer. He also recalled seeing another vehicle parked down the road from Rhonda's. This second car was a black or dark blue Trans Am. The authorities found several fingerprints on the driver's side door of Rhonda's car, and they believe the prints belonged to her killer, but they have never matched anyone. To this day, the murder of Rhonda Hinson remains unsolved. A $20,000 reward has been offered for information in the case, but nothing new has arisen.
Click the join button to become a member today. Channel members receive exclusive content as well as early access to all my content.
Port Allen, Louisiana, Christmas Eve of 2002. 65-year-old Mary Ann Fowler was standing outside a Subway sandwich shop in a strip mall at 5:30 p.m. She was just about to go visit her husband, Jerry Fowler, in prison. Jerry had been a Louisiana elections commissioner until he was caught taking bribes, for which he was sentenced to 5 years in a Texas federal prison. Marie wanted to spend a little time with her husband in honor of the holiday, but she would never get the chance. At some point before leaving the strip mall, Marie was abducted by an unknown third party. Investigators found Marie's personal belongings scattered on the pavement, including several acrylic nails that had presumably been broken off during a struggle with her kidnapper. The authorities concluded that robbery was not the motive, given the fact that Marie's food, purse, and keys were all still at the crime scene. Several wrapped Christmas presents were also found in the backseat of her car. Surveillance footage from the strip mall shows a General Motors pickup truck speeding away from the sandwich shop around the time Marie disappeared. The footage also captured a man who immediately became the prime suspect in Marie's kidnapping, but the video quality was so bad that the man's features were unidentifiable. Tire tracks were found in the parking lot, and the police suspect that they belonged to the abductor's vehicle. Before long, law enforcement settled on a promising theory in the case. They believed Marie may have been the victim of the Baton Rouge serial killer. Derek Todd Lee was convicted of 7 murders, attempted murder, and SA in 2004. According to detectives, he owned a similar truck to the one from the surveillance footage, and his cell phone records placed him near the site of Marie's abduction on Christmas Eve. Law enforcement attempted to link Lee to Marie with DNA, but they could not find any viable samples for testing at the crime scene. According to Sheriff Mike Kazes, he visited Lee in prison to ask about Marie Fowler. He promised not to press any charges for her murder if Lee simply told him where her body was buried, but Lee flew into a blind rage and refused to answer the question. Many of the people who were involved in the case still believe that Lee was responsible, but he died from natural causes in 2016, so we will most likely never know for certain. Sheriff's deputies searched for Marie for 12 days after her disappearance, and they covered 500 miles of the surrounding area, but nothing was ever found. She was declared legally dead in May of 2004.